Vibrance versus saturation. What on earth is the difference between vibrance and saturation? So vibrance is a really interesting term, but it was made up by Adobe. They created this really cool tool that started to saturate a photo more intelligently, as opposed to just bringing all of the saturation values up all at the same time. And so they gave it a name and they called it Vibrant. And now every other photo editing program uses the same terminology because it's now industry-wide and we use it all the time. These two can be a bit confusing, but one boosts the intensity of the color in the areas that are already colorful, and one boosts the intensity where there is little to no color. So vibrance boosts the amount of color in an area where there's little to no color. So sometimes it seems like increasing this one is more pleasing, but it depends on how much color is already in the image and how many competing colors there are working against each other in your image. Saturation, on the other hand, increases the color values of each of the colors already in your picture, and so becomes very apparent first in the areas where you already have a lot of color. Because it's bringing up the high value colors first, they reach the max in the image first. So increasing the saturation value of the whole image is more limited than vibrance is. Think of it this way. Saturation, you've got your high value saturation items, like a bright red flower, and then you've got your low value saturations. So if I pull up saturation, it's going to altogether bring the saturation of your images up like this. Vibrance brings the low values up and the higher values up a lot less. So it's filling in the low areas of saturation with more color. So if saturation does this, vibrance does this, and brings those low values up towards the high values. So you can see here when I increase vibrance, it's trying to add color into these previously almost colorless areas. And these colorful areas aren't getting all that much more color. Whereas if I increase the saturation, these areas here go super colorful right away, and these areas here with little to no color don't change nearly as much. You can see that when I decrease the vibrance all the way to 0, these heavily colored areas don't actually get to black and white. They still retain some color. Whereas if I pull the saturation all the way down, the image becomes a true black and white. So if I want to give the image more of a toned look in conjunction with some of the other color tools that we have, I can keep the really colorful parts of the image more intense and drop down the color of the less colorful areas and let the tones we add later flavor the rest of the image. Another way to look at the effect is if I go full saturation and 0 vibrance, there's still lots of color. But if I go full vibrance and no saturation, there's no color. So saturation boosts colors that are already there, vibrance to boost areas that aren't very colorful. So if you want to give overall more color to your photo, then you want to use vibrance. If you want to enhance the colors that are already there, then you want to use saturation.